I thought we get to the end, but it's hard to say goodbye to yesterday. All right. Welcome to Mancave Sports. We have a special Timberwolves season edition preview.
I don't even know how to feel right now. You just did that.
Yes. Obviously, the first thing at the top of everybody's head is what developed last Friday. I know Brett covered it Saturday morning. Did a nice job, Brett, of covering, I think, a lot of Timberwolves fans' emotions, highs and lows with Cat. I think at the end of the day, whether or not you were a huge fan of Cat or liked his game, et cetera, the human being, what he meant to the franchise, the city, et cetera, cannot be denied. So we will start out this Timberwolves 2024-25 season preview discussing the trade and everybody's thoughts about it. And I'll just start out by saying it came as a shocker from a value perspective and Cat's contract perspective. I understand of a lot of the reasons why they did it. Remains to be seen who won the trade. I think both teams have a chance to improve based on it, but there's also a lot of unknowns. So I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. But Steve, what were your thoughts on the trade as it unfolded? Because what's ironic, I was out of town. I got a text from you about it, and I'm just like, yeah, this sounds like BS. And by the time I looked in, I seen Shams and Johnny Athletic pretty much confirmed it, and it was just like, whoa, this has wheels. Sounds like it's a done deal, and I think it just completed today. But nonetheless, by Friday night, everybody knew this was a reality.
Yeah, I was blown away. I was sitting out in my man cave in the garage watching some weird, college football game or something, checking, the socials, and all of a sudden they started popping up, and I'm like, what? Like, it's kind of a bit of a gut punch when you're, in the sports world, right? We're not talking anything huge, but I was kind of blown away, and it really made me have to rethink my schema in my head about what the Timberwolves were going to be this year, what they were going to do. So the first thing was kind of shock and surprise because, Cat's Cat, like he's been with us through really crap. He put up with Jimmy Butler, and he's been an amazing guy in the community. He lost his mom during, he lost a couple family members during the pandemic, and the way the community bonded with him and stuff like that. So the human side of it sucks.
Yeah.
I also had to, but then I had to shift gears, and I'm like, well, we spent almost half of the last two seasons without Cat because of injury. And I'm like, all right, a little bit thinner. We don't have quite the 3 7-footers that we did before, and then it's like, okay, well, Julius Randle, yeah, he's tough. He's pretty big. I don't really want him taking stuff away from Ant, but then it's like, okay, DiVincenzo, all right, let's go. That guy's a defense and a D and 3 guy. So I'm loving it. I don't know, Ramon. I was a little bit shocked, but
yeah,
I was like a little girl. I'm like texting Mike. I'm like, Mike, look at this.
I had the same reaction initially. A lot of texts, some of which were with Mike, a lot of texts with other friends. I was shocked. But, as I thought about it more, I think we all knew this was going to happen eventually. One of the 3 bigs were eventually going to get traded, whether it be Rudy, whether it be Nas, whether it be Cat. And I think I had just hoped that they would run it back and give it one more season. But kind of like you touched on, Cat has been hurt a lot over the last couple of years. I think I read that over the past 5 years, he's averaged 60 games. He's played in 60 games per season. So you're missing 20 plus games a year. And it seems to be becoming kind of his thing. I love the man. I love the player. And he grew up here. I mean, I think he said that We got to see him for 9 years, and he put up with a lot of shit from the organization, from the fan base, from his teammates like Jimmy Butler. So I have a lot of love for him. So it hurts to see him go. And like you said, Mike, he's just such a good human. Um, all the things he's done for the community with his coat drive. I think he's been a spokesperson for social justice as well. So it sucks. It sucks in a lot of ways, but I think this had to happen. And I just hoped it would happen later. But that said, I think holding on for too long might have meant the value would have gone down. And they're saying that this Julius Randle offer has been out there for quite a long time, and the Wolves had a pretty hard no. But then when DiVincenzo got thrown into the mix, they were like, "Oh, okay, we'll start talking here." Then when you threw in the first round pick, which has protections, um, it I think you kind of had to do it. I mean, Julius Randle is Cat 4-time All-Star, I believe, 2-time All NBA player. Julius Randle, I didn't realize, I knew he'd been an All-Star, but I didn't realize it was 3 times and that he's a 2-time All NBA player. So he can play. And question about fit, that is we shall see. But the dude can play ball. And one of the things that I think that I want to dig more deeply into is to see how did he do in games against our Western Conference rivals, such as OKC, Dallas, Phoenix, because he plays bully ball, right? He really attacks mismatches, and the guy can handle the ball. I think he has a pretty nice range shot. He's a good passer. So I'm excited, and I'm just a huge DiVincenzo fan, have been since he was at Villanova. And he's even gotten to be better than I thought he was going to become. And hey, let's not forget, Keita Bates Diop is back with the Wolves. I mean,
Yes,
I don't know if he's going to be on the team, but the guy's a pro. I mean,
the
like
prayer is
he
answered.
probably, yeah, he probably won't be playing much, but when he gets a chance, he's a pro, and he will give you solid defense, good decision making. He won't embarrass you, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that tilts the trade a whole lot, but I think it's worthy of mention. Brett, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so as Mike mentioned, I cut you guys an 11-minute spot on my thoughts on Saturday morning, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but a lot of the things that you said, Ramon, we have kind of been forced to navigate life without Carl at a few big spots over the past handful of years, down the stretch this season. And then, I mean, even in some big playoff games when he fouls out by the third quarter. So it's not like it's uncharted territory. Like we're going to miss him on a personal level and all of those things, that the vibes were off the charts this year, and he was a big part of that. Um, but so like we've all covered, I mean, somebody had to go eventually. Did we know that it was going to be right now? No. But then you're in a really unique situation too, because while somebody does have to go, you you want it to me, like trading Karl Anthony Towns for a king's ransom of picks does absolutely nothing for me, because we as Wolf fans have only really seen in our 35-year history two windows: Kevin Garnett and Anthony Edwards. So a, a bunch of picks in the late 2020s don't really do much for me, because I don't know when our next window is going to be. When Anthony Edwards is gone, I've pretty much resigned myself to it might be 10 years before we're in this Western Conference final situation again. So how can you trade Carl and still preserve the product on the floor to be a championship product? And you're getting another resource and give you 25 points a night if he needs to. If Anthony Edwards is off, you have another guy that can step in and be that alpha scorer. How they go together, I don't know, because as we've mentioned, Randall seems to be a guy that needs the ball for a little bit longer to make things happen. But as I've digested this trade a little more over the handful of days, I cannot stop thinking about this Dante DiVincenzo contract. So next year, theoretically, if everyone opts in, Julius has a player option and Nas has a player option. If both of those guys opt in, we're getting Naz Reid, Julius Randle, and Dante DiVincenzo for the price of Karl Anthony Towns. It's like the same. It's like 56 mil to 53 mil. So it's really a no-brainer when you remove all of the emotions and all of those things. I think this was the best case scenario in putting a championship product on back onto the court this season and preserving the future. To me, Dante DiVincenzo being $11 million annually for 3 years at age 27 with this core group means more to me than any draft pick could. You would get a draft
Yep.
pick and you would pray that it turns into the player that Dante DiVincenzo is in 5 or 6 years even. So Dante's there already, and you're getting him at a remarkable price. So I think right there, again, there's no way to tell who won the trade. But man, even without Randall, I'm like, the DiVincenzo get is so big to me. But I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'll send it back to the boys at the cave. Those are my thoughts. And
Yeah.
if you're up to my thoughts, check the channel. There's 11 minutes worth. So
And I'll say this, and I think all four of us can agree. Out of the three bigs that we talked about, Cat, Rudy, and Nas, who was going to get you the most value in a trade? And I mean, it was Cat by far, in my opinion. I think Nas, he's got a lot of upside, but I don't know that you would have gotten the haul that you did with Cat, who's an established star. Nas is still young, up and coming, could definitely carve himself out a nice career in the NBA. Has already as the sixth man of the year last year, but nonetheless, and let's be honest, I love Rudy, but I don't know that a whole lot of teams are going to give up a king's ransom for him at this juncture.
can I add one thing too, Mike? On the Rudy end, like noting Rudy only has 1 year, I think, after he's locked in this year, then as a player option. So there's a chance Rudy gets cheaper too. If he extends,
Yeah.
it probably won't be at the same mark. We might have Rudy like in the mid to low 30s annually. He's getting a little older, and maybe he'll take a team friendly deal and do
Well,
some ring.
and I seen Conley talked about. I think Rudy likes it here. He's probably he's probably willing to accept a salary cap friendly deal to get extended here. I was reading about that the other day. I think Conley touched on it on media days. So I mean, Rudy likes it here. I think he would be willing to work with us to help the salary cap. So I mean that's a good point. And yeah, to your point, Rudy's in great physical shape. I believe he's 31 or maybe going on 32, but nonetheless, I think he still has 3 or 4 productive years left in him.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors that we brought up here, and saying that if we stand pat with that first round draft pick, we've got kind of insurance in case Dillingham doesn't work out. We know that we're gonna need somebody to replace Conley, and then we're gonna need point guard help. And then if Dillingham turns out to be everything we want, so we don't have to run as much point, and now you've got that first round pick if we stay pat with it, to go after, another 7-footer or something, somebody, a good rim protector. So I really don't want to see Nas get bogged down in the center of the, defense and taking more fouls because we're going to take his offense off the court. And I think that's part of what Randall will do is with that bully ball. Because, again, the only thing I'm really scared about in the West is Zach Edey coming into Memphis. That guy's a beast. He's 7'4", like 300 pounds. He's a monster. We need somebody that can physical with that guy. I mean, I watch a lot of Big Ten sports. I watched him play last year, and he's the real deal. He's mowing people over. You need somebody that can be just as physical with him. And I think Randall brings that. I don't think Cap was going to bring that. And I think that, having this ability to be a little more flexible, still have that three big rotation, allows Nas to stay outside and do what he can do. Like, I mean, the guy dribbles almost like a point guard. He's ridiculous. No, he's not going to be a flamethrower like Cat can be when he gets hot. He's not that guy. But we don't need him to be because we brought in DiVincenzo. So I mean, Tim Conley, I don't know. This guy's playing like 4D chess right now with the league. I don't know how he sees this, but he stuck to his guns. He wanted Randall, but he wasn't going to give up Cat without getting all the right pieces. So I don't know. I think Randall's addition is going to be helpful against some of these. I don't think Jokic is going to handle Randall real well, and I like Ramon said, I'd be interested in seeing those stats against. But I don't think Joker is going to match up against Randall and Nas real well, and then have to deal with the height of. I think that when we look at the other bigs in the West, I'm not real concerned. Even the Mavericks. The Mavericks keep trying. If the Mavericks try to do that dink and dunk alley-oop stuff, with Randall in the lane, that he'll take a fall just knocking somebody out. I mean, he's gonna be like, oh, you want to alley oop over the top of me, and that guy is gonna be like 1989 with Michael Jordan all over again. I don't know. Ramon, what do you got, bud?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things. You mentioned Dallas. I was listening to another podcast, Locked on Wolves, and they had the Locked on Knicks host on the show, and he had something to say that was very interesting to me and something that I would not have expected. I'd heard that Randall was a pretty good defender. I mean, you basically can't play for Tom Thibodeau, not play heavy minutes without being a pretty good defender. But one of the things that he said is that he's a better individual defender than he is a team defender. And he actually was willing and he was actually somewhat effective in guarding Luka Doncic last year, guarding Giannis. And, he may not have played him a whole lot, but when he got his chance, he held up. And that was pretty shocking to me. Also, just wanted to say this about Cat, and I know this is a T-Wolf centric uh, show, but I'm happy for him that he gets to go to a good team and he kind of gets to go home. And they're a contender too. So I'm happy that he still gets a chance to play in big games. Granted, the pressure of New York, the New York media is going to be tough, and I hope he's able to handle that. But then again, just on the human side, I'm happy for him that he gets to go home in a sense, and that he gets to go to a good team that has a real chance at doing some serious damage this season.
Brett, you good?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right. And my answer to your Zach Edey riddle is Luca effing Garza.
I love that.
And
Epic.
All right. And here's one of the things, too. I think I talked to one of you guys about it. With Cat leaving, that might open up some minutes for Luca. So we know he's an offensive machine. So be interested to see what he can do this year.
Luka time.
All right. Next subject, biggest unknown. And Steve, I like that you just hit upon, to me, what I feel is the biggest unknown with this team this year, and that is at the point guard. Mike Conley is not a spring chicken. We moved up surprisingly to everybody here and got Dillingham, and I like what I saw in the summer league. I like what I've watched from him at Kentucky. There's definitely a lot of upside. I think he's going to be one of the few guys on the team that can create his own offense, et cetera. I mean, I think we're all concerned a little bit about the defense, but it looks like he can chuck from deep, et cetera. So my biggest unknown for this season is, what is Rob Dillingham's place with this team? How many minutes is he going to play? I mean, is he going to spell Conley? Is he going to eventually start and Conley come off the bench? Because let's be honest, outside of Conley and Dillingham, we're not horribly deep. I mean, we can use we can use Ant at the point to alleviate some minutes. But if one of them goes down, we're going to be hurting at the point. So for me, that's just the biggest unknown. What's Dillingham's place going to be this year? What's he going to be able to contribute right out of the gate? Steve, what's your biggest unknown for this season?
Yeah, that really, as I look, now that I've digested the Cat trade and stuff like that, and it's like, my biggest unknown and my biggest fear was having defensive drop off. Now, Slow-Mo was Slow-Mo, but he was a good defender, and he was a good quarterback of the defense, making sure guys were rotating where they needed to be. Some of the announcers called it out in some of the playoff series where he's directing he's directing people to get to the right spots. How do we replace some of what we lost with our defense? And so that was my biggest unknown, because that's when we have an offense that sometimes takes a while to get going, and Ant got to get hot. I don't know how many things I've thrown in Mike's cave here because Ant decided that he was going to be a distributor instead of attacking downhill. And it's like, just go attack, just attack. So that defense is so important. And I'm like, Joe Ingles, dude, he's going to do things. But now bringing in DiVincenzo, you match DiVincenzo with Nas and shoot, I just drew blank.
That one guy.
The dude with the hair and the things, Nas twin, Jaden
McDaniels.
Yeah, Jaden. Sorry, I don't know why I drew a blank there. It's a thing.
Man, we're gonna get you a Jaden McDaniels jersey because you brain farted his
brain
farted him last Timberwolves one too. So
I did.
you guys, we're contributing. We're going in on a Jade McDaniels jersey for this
Let's be
guy.
like,
I'm in. I'm in.
When's your birthday?
Not till May.
Not till May. Okay, well, we got to do it before
Christmas
then.
is coming though. Right?
Yes,
Right?
Christmas. We will get you a damn Jade McDaniels jersey.
Yeah.
The seatbelt.
But no, that was my biggest worry. I mean, it sounds weird because we got the defensive player of the year. We were the number one defense in the league last year, but when you're number one, the only place to go is down. And losing some of, like I said, Slomo was a quarterback for defense. Offense was just kind of, he was the ugly duckling out there.
Well, and let's be honest, last year was by far Cat's best season defensively. I mean, you saw him in the playoffs, especially the first 2 rounds. And Phoenix we would have beat, but we don't beat Denver without Cat's defense in the second round.
No, being able to bring Cat grew and learned how to play against Joker. I mean, he really did, and he did a lot better job. And so then when you're able to throw Rudy and then Cat and Nas at, it frustrated him and it got him tired. He was done by the end of the third quarter most nights. So seeing that we brought in DiVincenzo, I'm like, all right, you've got a lot of good defensive prowess, and you can now mix and match, right? You've still got that three-headed kind of front court monster when it comes to defense. And no matter what you're doing, you've got Ant, you've got you've got a combination. The other thing I had was kind of echoing you. Dillingham, I watched him in the summer league too, and he's pretty raw still. He had a lot of good stuff, but there was a lot of lapses and things like his decision making. There's a couple of close games, and he didn't make the right move. He kept the ball in his hand because he's got that mentality, but he didn't hit the right play at the right time, and that just takes time to learn. So, I guess I'm looking for Mike Conley to be kind of playing more games at the beginning of the season, and then filtering in more Dillingham, maybe some point Ant like you talk about, Nah and some people. But those are my 2 big ones, was the defense with all this shakeup we've got going on, and then Dillingham's maturity.
Ramon.
Mike, you took mine. I was going to talk about the point guard, the backup point guard position.
We should collaborate beforehand.
No. This allows me to touch on some other things. I think the biggest concern, I think, at the top of everybody's mind is the fit of Julius Randle. Like, how is he going to fit in with this team? How is he going to play alongside Rudy Gobert? Because, like, even for Mike Conley back in Utah, he said it took about a year for him to figure out how to play with Rudy Gobert. It took Cat a little bit of time, as hard as he tried to play with Rudy as well. So that is a big question mark. But the thing that just kept coming into my head is, I think one of the things that needs to happen for the Timberwolves really to take another step, go to that true championship level, is Ant's playmaking. I think for others, we've seen what an incredible scorer he can be. We've seen him grow with like his drive and kickouts to outside shooters. But one thing I haven't really seen, and I think this has been talked a lot about, is he's not a great lob thrower. And you could really see the difference. Luka in the playoffs last year just is so patient when he gets into the lane. And he kind of has to play that way because he isn't the fastest guy. But he just kind of waits for things to unfold. And then bang, he drops off a pass for a dunk. Not always a lob. It'll sometimes just be a little drop-off pass to the dunker spot, or, find somebody just kind of cutting in from the outside. And Ant goes to the basket so fast and so like straight line that I don't think he's taken that next step of being able to find little cracks in a defense in the interior. And I think if he was able to grow in that regard, I think his playmaking would go to another level. And I think he already can kick it out really well to open shooters. He's trying to throw more lob passes to people, but I think there needs to be a little bit more growth in finding people in traffic. And I think if he can figure that out, wow. And it's hard to doubt him because he's gotten better every season statistically and through the eye test. He just keeps growing and growing, and he cares so much. I still can't believe that article that question whether he loved the game before he was drafted, because the guy clearly loves the game, clearly wants to be great, and isn't just saying that he wants to be great. He's clearly putting in the work. So it's a concern, but at the same time, like I have full belief that if he doesn't figure it out this season, he may later in the season or perhaps next season. Hopefully it's this season. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as the biggest unknown, I mean, it's kind of broad for me, but I think it's just the rotation with all of the developments in the last handful of days. I mean, we kind of know what the starting five is going to look like with Finch confirming that Randall will start at the four. I think you're going to see a lot of staggering though with Nas, Rudy, and Randall. I think they're all going to get about 30 minutes, and I'm not as concerned there about like who starts because that's really only like the first 7, 8 minutes of the game. It's more to me about who's going to be your closing lineup on that front end. But I'm not going to dive into that. I think for me, like the real mysteries are transpiring at the back end of the rotation. And point guard's a big one for me, but I think it looks a little bit different than when we last circled up because I was ready to come into this meeting like, well, is it going to be PJ Dozier or is it going to be Daishawn Nix who secures that? I don't think we're going to see either of those guys on the court. I think they're both going to be in Iowa all year now because I think to add to what we discussed here on the point guard, I'm going to see Dante DiVincenzo take the reins at the one here and there. And again, the Dillingham fit is interesting now because so we know the starting five. So six is obviously Nas, and then DiVincenzo, and then still probably Nah. So there's eight right there. Are you going to work Dillingham into the rotation on those nights? Or are you going to give those minutes to Joe Ingles where, you already got two guards working in and out? I think there's going to be nights where Rob Dillingham gets a DNP, coach's decision, and then the next night when Mike Conley's off, he's going to start, and then he's going to have a platoon of Naw and DiVincenzo behind him, and you're not really going to need Daishawn Nix or any of those guys to step in emergency roles. So I think Dillingham's going to have a really interesting season. But then behind that, man, I thought like TSJ was going to be a rotational piece, and he still might. I mean, he still might get those Joe Ingles minutes. Joe Ingles is again 37, 38 years old. He might not be able to go every night. But if you're looking at a 9-man rotation, like is there a way that Engels and TSJ fit on the same nights? I cannot imagine. I think we're going to see a lot less Leonard Miller than we had maybe anticipated. Not that we got a ton of him last year, but we thought maybe Leonard Miller, Josh Minot. So I don't know. What do you do with those guys at the back of the rotation? Because I just don't see a ton of work for them. I think you will get a little bit of work for Luca Garza. In spots where you need a true center to come in and make up for some of that production that you're losing with Cat. But I don't know. I mean, just the rotation. So I think preseason is going to be really interesting to me. I'm going to keep a really close eye on how Finch is, and not everyone's going to play preseason, obviously. So it's not going to be there's going to be some skewed data there. But man, just the rotation in general. So apologies for a broad answer, but my head's just spinning with this rotation with who fits where. Jalen Clark, too. Jalen Clark was like a guy that we thought was maybe getting here. And that kid's probably going to be in Iowa all year, but I loved what I saw from him in summer league. So there's going to be guys that you won't see this season that still carry value for this team moving forward. So how the organization manages those guys moving forward and puts him in the best spots. I'd rather have Jalen Clark get minutes in Iowa than rotting at the end of our bench all year. So I don't know. So a lot of things to consider there. So rotation is going to be really interesting. And it looks a lot different. I think it was pretty forward prior to the Cat trade, what we were looking at. Now I think there's just a ton of mystery left. So that'll be really interesting to see how everyone is used in these situations. So we'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, we've got it. The rotation is going to be tricky, like you're talking about. We've got now 7 players in the top 100 in the NBA that are in the top 100 list. 7 players, and that so like when you're looking at minutes for like Dillingham and TSJ and Garza and some of these other guys, it's like yeah, you got to develop people. You want to bring them along, especially like Randall if he has an injury issue or something like that. You're going to need Luka. You're going to need some of these other people. And I mean, Ingles, where does he fit into all of this? Right? But it's hard to pull a top 100 player off the court for some of these other people. So I mean that rotation is really going to be tricky. I think,
Especially if
you're
only going 8 men in the playoffs too. Then it gets even smaller. Like you might not see Rob Dillingham get playoff minutes.
Right.
regardless of how he looks this year. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, we'll see how he develops over the season, but I don't think that's a bad thing because if you bring him into a team like that stacked like this, and then you expect him to be the missing piece and just split time evenly with Conley, I think we'll ruin him. He does have stuff that he's got to get better at, playmaking decisions. He's got to learn, sit kind of like a rookie quarterback, right? You can throw him out and let him go to the Wolves, or you can bring him back next to you and be like and teach him and learn. And I think with Dillingham, it makes a lot more sense to teach him and make him learn because he's got a lot of talent and he's got something that Ant doesn't. He's got it's a cliche, but kind of that Mamba mentality to him. He's a killer. That's part of the thing, like you talked about. Does with Ant's love of the game? He's just an affable guy. He's not Jordan. He's not the Mamba. He doesn't. He's not Kevin Garnett. He's not looking to beat you and then spit on you on the way out the door. He's like, hey man, I can just beat you. He wants to hang out afterwards and be friends. That's who he is as a person. But Dillingham, on the other hand, he's willing to go down, and TSJ, both of them have very tough-minded people. And so I think if we bring them along, we could that might help bolster something. I don't know, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, a lot of valid points. I think a lot of some of the players we talked about, I think prior to some of the offseason acquisitions and the trades, you started to wonder if guys like Minot and Miller and Clark would get their chance. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm glad Luka's still here, but I mean, it's almost going to take somebody getting injured, unfortunately, for him to get some real clock. So we'll see how that progresses. I'm anxious for Friday night. I mean, we got first first game going on Friday night. I think we're at LA, and it's just like
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what some of these young bucks do and kind of see what I don't know that we'll get a good preview of what the rotation is going to look like, but I'm ready to see how some of our newcomers and some of our young players play. So looking forward to that.
Uh, can I
Next
add
thing
one
that
thing? Mike, do you mind
yep,
if I
go ahead.
just chime in real quick about these young guys at the end of the bench? Word around is that Josh Minot has looked incredible in the summer and like just putting in a ton of work, working on his body, working on his jump shot. And I think the work is starting to show. I think Finch and perhaps Connolly spoke very highly of the work that he's putting in and the progress he's been making. So I was kind of excited. Oh, maybe he'll get his chance. But now it's like this team's very deep, very, very deep. So it's hard to see as you all mentioned, like how is this all going to fit together? How are these young guys even going to get a chance? And they probably shouldn't. They probably won't.
Well, nobody rolls 15 deep like the Timberwolves. Let's be honest. So, uh, real quick, next, next topic. And this has probably changed from what I would have thought, perhaps a week ago, but with the dynamic of the cat trade, who is the most likely player to be dealt by the trade deadline? And I would have said prior to the season, perhaps Cat might be that person. I think a lot of us felt that. I think a lot of it was dependent upon, or the thought was dependent upon how the season was going, because I think we all thought they were going to run it back. And if something went sideways, perhaps Cat is a candidate to get moved before the trade deadline. But looking at the roster now, what do you guys think is the likely player? And I'll start out with you, Ramon, and then we can work our way around again. Who do you think is the most likely casualty, if any, by the trade deadline?
I mean, I think it's got to be Cat's replacement. I think it's got to be Julius Randle, who has the highest likelihood. Not that I think it's very high, but what if he doesn't fit in? What if it's not? What if it doesn't come together? He has a pretty favorable contract in that he just has this year and then a player option next year. That you know, it's crazy money to normal people, but in the NBA, it's not crazy money. 30 million, that's a movable contract.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be Julius Randle. And to, I was kind of trying to figure out, is there someone else that could possibly get moved? And it's just, the young guys at the bench, I can't see them having enough value right now to really be tradable. So Randall's the only guy I can think of. I mean, and this, you guys are probably gonna hate me for even saying this, but I mean, maybe not and the public is gonna hate me too, but maybe Naz Reid, and I think that's crazy
I'm
talk.
right there with you.
And the reason I say that is because his contract situation as well. I'm
Yep.
not saying they should. I'm not saying they will. it's just that if there's anybody that could have a chance, maybe, if I hate to say it, but if money really is an issue for whoever becomes the owners of this team, maybe because he's gonna get a big pay raise and he's got a player option next year. So maybe him, but when I say maybe, I am I don't think there's really any chance of it. So I shouldn't even have said that.
Well,
Why you gotta bring me?
yeah,
You
but
want
you
to come
made
over
it.
and kick the dog?
You made a
later,
valid
too?
you made a valid point though, because if I'm not mistaken, they cannot extend him till after the season, correct? He has to either accept or refuse his player options. So I mean, Nas kind of has us by the balls, let's be honest with you. Not that, I'm sure he's very loyal and appreciates the organization. I mean, he signed a very friendly contract for us, but nonetheless, I mean, depending upon how the season goes, him along with Julius Randle are probably your only tradable assets that's going to fetch you something, that might help the ball club or not put him off track. So
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I really can't really see that happening. It was a thought because of his contract situation. So and he's just such a, like, what a story.
yeah,
What he's become in this state. I mean, you see the Nas Reed flags at Lambeau and, at wrestling events, and
WrestleMania.
it's
Yep,
so cool
WrestleMania.
to see. I mean, like, it's so much fun. And so I think um, I'd be really sad to see him go, and I don't think it'll happen. I really don't think it'll happen. So, yeah.
Too late. You spoke it into the universe.
I
Now it's
know, I
over.
know. I'm the downer over here. Save me, Brett, please.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I hate to like hard disagree with you because I think you just kind of hard disagreed with yourself. But
Yeah.
I, I still I stand by the belief that I think the cat move was a ringing endorsement of Nas.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right. Yeah, he is due for a payday, but it's just not going to be anywhere in the same stratosphere as Cat. And that's a lot of the reason that Karl Anthony Towns is gone now. I think like I don't know, but probably like what, like 20, maybe 25 annually. We can afford that now that we're not paying
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns that money. And there is, so I'm completely with you on Julius Randle because there's just so that's just shrouded in mystery. What is that going to look like? If it truly is a disastrous fit, it's pretty movable. So yeah, that's something that is worth keeping an eye on. And then there's of course people throwing out like the fantasy scenarios of Julius Randle for Kevin Durant next summer. Like I don't know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Durant's pretty expensive too. So I do have one X factor in this discussion. Again, to lean on the newfound existence of Dante DiVincenzo. Nah,
Yeah.
Dante is kind of a
Yeah.
souped up nah. So if you're looking at it and you're like, not that they don't work together, because I think they'll look great together on the court. But if you're like, okay, we're either going to we're only going to keep one of them long term, and it's Dante. He's already locked up. Why don't we cash that Nah chip and maybe we can get a pick or something out of him because we're already getting similar production from DiVincenzo. They're very similar players. He's on an expiring deal, maybe another Eastern Conference contender would love to have him. For me, though, from where I sit as a Wolves fan, I would rather not go that route. To me, I would, even if you were to tell me that Naw walks at the end of next season or this current season, I'd rather just get a full year of service out of Naw and have him for the playoffs and then say goodbye to him. I'm at that point as a Timberwolves fan where I getting draft picks really doesn't do much for me. I would just rather have an extra 4 months of Nah after the trade deadline and use him in the playoffs and have that depth going into the playoffs. But I do think that would be the only other candidate. I really think there's only two active players that could be moved, and it's Julius and maybe not. But I think the hope is that nobody gets moved. The hope is that everything works out. Um, for the sake of discussion, crazy scenario, and I'm going to knock on all the wood here. 'Cause again, I don't want to put anything into the universe. If things went completely sideways and this season was an absolute disaster, Rudy, maybe you're like, all right, like it turns out we actually suck now. Let's cash this Rudy shit. But that would have to be a doomsday scenario for this season. But I don't know, man. I gun to my head, I don't think anyone's going to get traded of
Yeah.
any kind of consequential. Like you said, maybe some of these younger guys for some second round draft capitals at some point in the season, but I don't think anyone gets moved. But those are really the only two that I think are even remote possibilities at this point. So send it back to you guys.
I'm gonna go a little bit outside the box here. I think that first round draft pick and package with some younger dudes. I think we got some capital, and I think Tim Connolly, or he just holstered. He's got another bullet in the chamber right now, and he's gonna wait and see how this year kind of plays out a little bit. If Randall doesn't work, he can take that. He can take Randall, the salt in either some of these younger guys, because we've got Minot, we've got Miller, we've got heck, you can even package in the Engel as a veteran because he can shoot threes, right? You don't with DiVincenzo, do you really need Ingles for that shooting production anymore? So I think Tim Connolly, he's kind of got it set up perfectly right now. So I'm thinking the thing that gets moved is that draft pick, depending on how the season is going. We're going to see how Randall meshes. We're going to see how this all plays out and where we're at. And the injuries, I don't know if Ant, blows a knee. I mean, his ankles, not to put anything in the universe, but his ankles at some point, that's not going to flex like that anymore. We've seen him do that how many times last year where he goes down and his ankle's like backwards up on his calf and he's like, oh, I'm good. He shakes it out. I'm like, it must be nice to be rubber band boy. But I'm thinking that first round draft pick that we have, that's going to get traded. That's going to get packaged with some of these younger guys to make some salaries. And we're going to go after a piece that makes sense, depending on our injuries and depending on where we're at. If Rudy can't do it, right? If Rudy is just literally a liability out there, his hips are too tight or whatever's going on, I can see him packaging Rudy, some of the younger guys, and then going after somebody else that can be a different rim protector. There's a lot of guys out there like that. We could take, the scenarios are endless, and I'm not going to get crazy with it. But I think that first round draft pick is the thing that goes. I think that'll get dealt this year to shore up. Something. Again, it's tough. We've got 7 of the top 100 players, but having that first round, protected pick from Detroit, I think we're going to move that to bring in something to really push us over the top.
Yeah, I think if anybody, the likely candidates, obviously, Randall's got the player option, and probably you could fetch some stuff for that. I think obviously, just like the rest of you guys, we're going to see how the season plays out. I think he's here to stay for the immediate future, barring some crazy trade for maybe a Markkanen or something, which I'm willing to listen to. But I believe somebody that, and if I'm not mistaken, I would assume that we have bird rights on Nas, on players of that magnitude. So even though they're going to be UFA, or Nas got the player option, but I believe Nikhil is going to be a UFA, but we have the right to match a contract or give him good contract because he's got bird rights. But I would say, after talking to you guys, I mean, Randall seems like the obvious, but I think Nikhil, if he's having a good season, et cetera, because we have the chance to lose him, especially now that we got Dante, that he might be a tradable asset there. So I don't know. I like all your points. I don't have somebody that I think's going to move. I hope they all stay. I'd like to continue the continuity. I like the team that they have for this season. So, but great points by all you guys, and I like the outside the box with the first round pick that we got to dangle now. So
yeah, I'm a weirdo.
Well, I just want to make one correction. I did not make a great point, Mike. Nasri being traded is not a good point. I am just very curious to see what happens with his contract situation. Because, the new collective bargaining agreement, I mean, you're seeing, I think the only player that got maybe a max or more than $66 million that went to another team was Paul George this offseason, right?
yeah.
And you saw good players like Tyus Jones get the league minimum to go to Phoenix. I mean, so it's really interesting to see how this is affecting superstar players, mid-tier players, and then kind of the lower level players. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Naz Reid, and I totally see his future being here, and he's part of that foundation with McDaniels and Ant and DiVincenzo.
Mike Conley, I believe he took a 2-year contract for $22 million. Probably could have gotten $5 million more annually for another team. But I mean, he likes at this juncture, do you want to stay on a team that's above the apron, can only spend so much, or go to one of the let's be honest, look at some of the teams that have cap space. Are they going anywhere? Probably not. So you can probably get some hometown discounts on some of these players, because at the end of the day, 15, 20 million, how much difference is it going to be when you're sitting here in the cellar getting your asses kicked every night versus playing for a contender. Great point. So, gentlemen, the next thing that we have for this on the agenda is X Factor for this year. I will start out with this one. My X Factor for this year, and based upon his playoff performance last season, where I thought he really came out and showed the type of offensive prowess that he has and potential, is Jade McDaniels. Now, he made second team All NBA last year. We've known what a defensive study is. Uh, but last year, I don't think he made the leap during the regular season offensively that we would like to have seen. Now, with Cat gone, I know Julius Randle and Dante, they're going to get their points as well. But I would really like to see Jaden McDaniels take that next step from scoring 12, 13 points a game to possibly 16, 17. If he can increase his production by 4 to 5 points a game, I mean, I thought he shot very well from 3 point range in the playoffs. He had like 3 or 4 games where I think he scored plus 20. Remember before the Phoenix series, everybody was laughing at Ant's comment, and it was from the prior year. But when he said, "Yeah, they got KD, but we got Jade McDaniels," by the end of the Phoenix series, nobody was laughing. But I think for the Wolves to return to the Western Conference Finals and perhaps make it to the NBA Finals, Jade needs to take that leap from, fringe all-star, great defensive player to a next level scorer, somebody that really steps up his game and just takes a little bit of the pressure off of Ant. Although I think Ant is going to, put his pedal to the metal and probably go from averaging 26 or whatever he did last year. He might average close to 30 this year just because he's that alpha. But I think this team will go this season as far as Jaden McDaniels will take them. And that is my X factor. Steve.
Yeah. Oh, this is a tough one, especially after the trade, right? Because now
Yeah.
we brought in DiVincenzo. Randall's an X factor, but I'm like, I'm not worried about Randall because it's like we've got draft picks, we've got other guys. He doesn't, we do have Luka, we do have Ingles, we have other tall guys that we could bring up into the rotation when we're playing some of these dudes. The big X factor for me is kind of what you guys are talking about with Ant's maturation here. How does Ant mature into knowing when to attack and how to attack the rim? Because there's a difference in he's either got one or two modes, and this is what drove me nuts last year. Is like, hey, shots not falling, we're not getting passing, it's not working. You have to attack the basket right now and speed the game up and really get after that. Now, attacking the basket doesn't mean he needs to shoot every time, but just his ability, his quick strike, like you said, to get down the lane and draw. I mean, he's a gravity well, right? He gets in the lane and everybody collapses on him. That piece of his game, like you guys are talking about, is so important for us because with Conley, they're already talking about Conley not going to play as many minutes and they're going to rest him. Dillingham, love the kid, he looks good, but he ain't ready. So that means I think there's going to be a lot more point Ant, which means there's going to be a lot more decisions that he has to make. DiVincenzo coming in, let's see what the difference is. But with what he's doing, Nah can bring the ball up the court. But I think the big X factor for me is the maturity of Anthony Edwards. Like we talked about in the recap show with his experience in the Olympics. I thought he did amazing. Quick strike offense, was able to come in and hit the jumpers, was effective really fast. His next level is really got to be working on his playmaking ability and not just being able to attack or spot up, work on his own shot, but getting his other teammates involved and getting that ball movement going.
Well, I was gonna say Jaden McDaniels as well, but Mike, you beat me to it once again. I think him taking another step offensively and shooting more efficiently, like he did 2 years ago, is going to be massive. And if he's able to get those efficiency numbers up, and if his usage goes up and he's able to handle it, then they can really take another step. And this may be part of my apology to the Nas Reed fans out there, but I think Nas Reed is also one of the big X factors because he is going to be starting, I think, sometimes because I'm assuming Rudy's going to probably miss some games this year. We don't know how the fit's going to be with Julius Randle. So Nas is probably going to start some, but mostly come off the bench. And he was able to do that seamlessly last year. I think in the 20 games that Cat missed, I think they went 14-6, if I remember correctly. So that right there, can he play effectively as a starter? Huge. I can't forget, or I almost forgot about how great he played in the final 5 minutes of the Denver series. I think we may have talked about this last week in Game 7. I mean, he helped get them over the top in that series in Game 7. I think he had a follow dunk. He had another offensive rebound that led to 2 free throws, which he hit both of them. He had that drive and kick to Ant for probably the dagger three. I think he swatted Jokic. He's been criticized for his defense, but he swatted Jokic. He almost had, I think, another steal. He was all over the place. And I'm probably leaving out some of the things that he did so well that helped them get over the hump in that Game 7. And, that was actually, I think, a big question for me going into the playoffs was like, wow, this dude has really grown as a player, but how is it going to look when he's playing against the elite teams? How is it going to look when you're playing against focused teams that are prepared for you and shortened rotations? And he had some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, Game 7, he was incredible, and he's clearly a gamer. He's clearly fearless, and he, like Ant, has done nothing but get better every season. So I'm very curious to see what he brings to the table this year, and if it's the same as what he brought last year, wow, that's great. But if he adds another wrinkle to his game, which he always does, this team's going to be scary. So, Brad, what about you? Who do you think the X factor is, or what do you think the X factor is?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as who the X factor is, I'm just going to co-sign with Mike because I think Jaden McDaniels is the only answer as far as X factors. And reason being because I think that with the departure of Cat, everyone's green light is getting a little bit greener. And I think that the way that Julius Randle plays, a little more playmaking ability, that takes a lot of the playmaking load off of Mike Conley. And I think you're going to see when Mike's on the court, I think you're going to see an uptick in those corner threes. And I'm pretty confident in what Mike Conley is going to do when he has those opportunities. He knocks those shots down at a pretty good clip. When Naz Reid's out there, I'm pretty confident in him to shoot around 40% when he gets those kickouts. If Jaden McDaniels can be another weapon that develops into a true 3-and-D guy, that floor spacing that we've been worried about with Julius Randle swapping in for Cat, I think becomes much less of an issue. And then I think X Factor B is Nah. Because we saw Nah play that real 3-and-D role in the Phoenix series, and then he really just fell off a cliff later on in the playoffs with his shooting. But if he can be that same Jaden McDaniels-esque presence, if they can both knock down those corner threes when they get the opportunities, I think that makes our offense so dangerous. So it really, to me, just comes down to shooting. And then the nights when Mike Conley's not there, Rob Dillingham I think it was like a 44% three-point shooter in college. I know that the 3-point line is different, and he's going to have to adjust to that, but pretty confident in his shooting. We just don't know what the true offensive product of Jaden McDaniels is. I tend to believe that what we saw late in the playoffs is the true Jaden McDaniels potential as an offensive player. And I still think that I don't know that like maybe Na was just shooting out of his mind in that Phoenix series, but I still think he's a much better shooter than he was against Denver and Dallas. So if those two guys can get it together from the 3-point line and complement the DiVincenzo's a guy who dishes a lot as well, so he's going to drive and dish. So this guy's going to have to be ready to get those shots up. So everyone else, Dante, Naz Reid, Dillingham, Mike Conley, and I'm confident those guys are going to knock down their three balls. I just need Jaden and Noah to do it as well. And if they can do that, we are a dangerous team offensively. So that's where I'm at. So
appreciate what you guys, said about Jaden as well. Something that I wrote down as I was listening to you guys too, that's, I believe, worthy to note is that Jaden historically had foul trouble, a lot of foul trouble prior to last year. And I think the maturation of Jaden last year, not getting in the foul trouble early or picking up ticky-tack fouls.
Or breaking his hand on a wall.
Yeah, that too. But I think you saw just Jaden grow last year as a player, maturity wise, et cetera, and wasn't picking up the fouls, wasn't getting in the foul trouble that he did early in his career. So that's great to see. I think he'll be definitely a candidate for all defensive again. I think if he can take that offense to the next level, he's definitely going to have a good season. And I am going to finish off here before I go grab my charge cord because my laptop's about to die. Um, we're going to finish off with our predictions for record and for their seed. So, Ramon, we'll start with you while I go grab my
Oh
charge cord
gosh.
before this dies.
Oh man. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me. Uh, let's say 54 wins is my thought. Uh, 4 seed, 3, 4 seed, maybe. I'm not confident about that. I told myself I would look down the whole schedule and see what I thought. Didn't get around to doing that, but I think they're going to be in the mid 50s. And it's such a stacked conference though, so it's going to be hard to like determining seeding is going to be tough. I mean, there could be, I think 2 years ago, wasn't it like the third and the seventh seed were split by just like 2 games or something like that, or 3 games or something like that. So I'm saying mid 50s for wins, Mike. I don't know if you heard me. Seeding third or fourth. Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think that it could go a handful of ways. Overall, I feel good. I think that we're gonna have a good season. I'll just go full homer with my prediction though, and I'll say we'll hit 58. We'll match the '04 Timberwolves. As far as seeding goes, that's where I'm lost. Whether it's 54, whether it's 58, man, it could be a 1 seed. I think that the company that we have to look out for at the top of the chart is going to be OKC. I think the Grizzlies are going to be a factor. I think you're correct on the Zach Edey take, Steve. I think the Grizzlies will be there. Phoenix got a couple point guards now. That's something that they were missing, so maybe that'll remedy some of their woes. I don't think Denver's better than us. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. I think Denver's going to be like a 4 or 5 seed. So I think wherever we shake out in the battle with OKC, Memphis, Phoenix, and then of course Dallas. I don't know. We'll see what Klay Thompson brings to the table there. So Dallas had a couple changes as well, so they have some things to figure out. But I think that's your elite crop. But I'll say it, 58, 2 or 3 seed.
Love it.
I'm gonna go a little bit more pessimistic. I think we're gonna be 50 or 52. I think it's gonna take us a minute to find our feet with this new rotation. I think Dante DiVincenzo will probably fit in because he's just kind of that guy, right? He just want to do what it takes. I don't know with Randall again, that big cloud of mystery like you talked about. Is he going to be this guy like where he's just going to be a vacuum and the ball goes in, it doesn't come out, he's a black hole, and we got to learn how to work with him. So I don't know that we're going to get. I think we're going to start the season, stumbling a little bit until we put things together, and then I can see us get on a roll and really make make life miserable. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a low point to start with. I think we're going to be frustrated, and there's going to be a lot of talk of what is happening, why did we do this, until we hit our stride and get going. And then I think as far as seeding goes, I don't know. It like last year, what was it like? It was the last day of the season to determine 1, 2, and 3 between us, OKC, and Denver. So I'm going to say probably. I don't know that we'll get the number 1 seed, but I think 2 or 3 it is my feeling, because it's the end of the season is going to come down to that last weekend. I think there's so much parity in the Western Conference. Yeah, I know about Boston, but outside of Boston, nobody in the East scares me. I'm sorry, nobody else. They don't play. It's almost a different brand of basketball at this point, where they're so much solo ball. Clear out and give me the ball and watch me dribble. It's like watching Charles Barkley from the Suns now in the East, where people just give him the ball, you walk away, you get a soda, have some popcorn, and then somebody goes in and shoots. So it's too tight in the West, though. So I'm going to say 2 or 3.
All right. I'm a little more optimistic than some of you. I will say this. as Ramon is my witness, 3 years ago, I accurately picked the Timberwolves to win 46 games. You remember that, don't you?
I do. I do.
If not, I'll find the text change. I know, text chain. I know it's in existence, but um, I think the West is going to be stacked this year. Nobody mentioned Sacramento. They picked up DeRozan. Obviously 2 years ago they were pretty damn good with Sabonis and Fox. They got a couple other pieces. I think
Yeah.
I think they might have been more of a threat in the playoffs if Monk hadn't gone down. So there's
Yeah.
another team nobody's talking about. Where I'll be honest with you, if if LA and Golden State don't fall off the frickin' map this year, I'll be shocked because really, did they improve at all? And they,
No.
they continue to age. That's why I'll be honest with you.
Well,
Phoenix,
they got rid of Westbrook.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, he went to Denver, so that's one of the reasons why I think they're not the boogeyman, as Brett would say, that they are anymore. I mean, let's be honest with you. He did wonders in LA, didn't he? But for both teams. But anyhow, I believe that the West is still stacked. Dallas is a threat. OKC is a threat. I think all of us can agree Memphis, between Ja coming back, if he's not out at the club getting tipsy or doing whatever, and he's got Edie there. I think they're a threat. I mean, they got a deep team, so I think the Western Conference will be tougher this year. But I still peg the Timberwolves to get 56 wins, much like they did last year. Might be a little bit optimistic, but I think that'll be good for a 1 or 2 seed because I just think that, and let's remember this: San Antonio's. I don't know that they'll make the playoffs, but they're an up and coming team. I don't know that Chris Paul is going to put them over the hump like some people think. But Wemby's no joke. They got a couple of other young players, and it looks like they had a decent draft outside of giving us Rob Dillingham. That I think they might contend for a play-in spot. They might have a chance at a 9 or a 10. So remember, at the end of the year when we were still fighting Denver and OKC for the #1 spot, I think that I can't remember if it was in San Antonio or Denver, but like one of the last 2 games of the season, they beat Denver, and that was a significant game for Denver. So I won't sleep on San Antonio. I don't know that they'll be anything better than the playing team, but they're another up and coming team. But final prediction for me is 56 wins and a 1 or 2 seed. So with that, gentlemen, we've been going at it strong for damn near an hour, if not an hour, which we had a lot to cover. I'm sure we could do this for
Yeah.
another hour, but whether or not we can get
Sure.
somebody to actually listen to us for longer than they have now, is another story. So with that, just want to thank you guys. Great discussion. I would like to, at the very least, do a bi-weekly Wolves cast along with this fine group of gentlemen. So we'll iron that out. But to anybody watching, like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate your viewership. And with that, we're looking forward to the season end because it's the end of the show. And we're still obviously reeling from Cat's departure. We will end with another Boys to Men ditty here. And we will see you soon.
Oh man. Miss you, Cat.
All right, gentlemen. We're not going to wait to get into the course of this. We'll be here for 2 more minutes. All right,
Thank you
gentlemen.
guys
We'll
so
see ya.
much. Good talking to you all. Have a good one. Take care.